In this video, I'm going to show how to add auto-updating images to reports in AGI, as well as automated render images to reports. Now, I'm kind of doing this in one take. I'm going to edit out the recalculations, but I'll probably have some backtracking and mistakes that you'll see. But hopefully this will help walk you through the problems that people encounter when they're trying to create reports with rendered images and how to do it correctly. So I'm starting here with a calculated file, and let me jump into render mode and point out that I have several saved viewpoints. I have 6 of them here. And by that I mean I went into a view, changed how I wanted it to appear. Sometimes they're in pseudo color, sometimes they're not. And then I added them as image ports, or viewpoints, sorry, in render mode. Now, the thing to note about this is that AGI sorts these alphabetically. I've added the numbers at the end showing you the order in which I actually created these viewpoints. So this was the first I made, this was the second, this was the third, but you can see they got sorted alphabetically, and that becomes important later. So let's jump on over to reports. And reports and all of these viewpoints and everything were really set up for this automated report process where you choose what you want it to show and one of the paper sizes available, and then it outputs all this automated content. But if you want to create your own, you use this tab here. And for this example, I'm going to change it from portrait to landscape, and I'll click OK. And now what AGI is doing here is it's capturing static images or bitmaps of all of these saved render viewpoints. And so this kind of gets back to how reporting used to work way back in AGI version 16 and earlier, in that all it would do would allow you to, before we had save viewpoints in render mode, it would allow you to save a rendered image, and then you'd come in here and add an image port and choose either the current rendering or a saved image, which is basically the same kind of thing. Now here in the new version, or newer versions, as we've progressed and added automated content, this is still geared toward that other automated process I showed and not toward manually generating pages with images that regenerate themselves as the model changes or what you're doing in render mode changes. So the thinking when one first comes in here and sees define luminaires is that I don't really want one of these images. I want one of my render images. Let's say I want the plan, no, let's go with ISO Southeast RGB luminance. So here's my image, and I click OK. And let's say I don't want to lock the size. Now, note here it says temp bitmap, but anyway, I'll click OK, and I'll kind of scale this down and make it fit on the page the way I want it to fit. Maybe make it a little bit bigger here. So I now have what looks like an image of the rendering, and it's true. It is an image of this saved viewpoint right here. However, if I go back to model mode and I'm going to add something that's right in our field of view in this particular view, right in here. So I'll go to plan view and just add an object that's 8 feet high right here where we're, turn off ortho, right here where we're going to see it. And so here's what it looks like. And now I'll recalculate. And here are the results after recalculating. If we go back to render mode, we can see the object right in our field of view and what it should look like in reports. But if we go to reports, it recaptures static images because all of these viewpoints have updated images now, but we already attached it to a saved static image here, and so we don't see this object. And so back in the day, the way what had to be done is you'd right click, go to properties, and then update the image to the same image view here, say viewpoint. Oops, that's the wrong one. It's this one here. Click OK, OK, and now it's updated. So that's the way to update it, the easy way, the old way, but it's not automated. The way to automate this content is choose Properties. And let me go back to this for a quick second. Notice this third tab, Proxy. Not very obvious what this means, but what it is a series of sort of gray image sizes with their pixel and dimensions in inches listed on them. Now these are going to become important in a minute, but I'm going to leave things as they are now. So I'm going to cancel. Here's dynamic image, and this is how you add an image that changes and references one of your saved viewpoints. And you do need to create saved viewpoints in render mode to do this, so that it automatically updates with the model here in reports. So you click that, and then from this drop down you've got some options. Now the only option that's relative to render view is render view 1. So you choose that because it is a reference to render mode. However, it's important to look at this number at the end. Notice it says 1. So if I come back here to select image and look at these here, these are again sorted alphabetically, and with those are associated image numbers. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So with that set to image 1, it's going to pull ISO southeast pseudo illuminance. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's leave it at image 1 for now, like it shows here. And I'll just click OK. Now, again, I did not choose a proxy. So right now, we have this temporary image from render mode, which as soon as I create dynamic content will become a proxy. And this gets really confusing when you do this. So let me click OK. And now it looks like nothing changed, and that's because the pages are unlocked. And when they're unlocked, AGI shows the proxy, not the automated content. If I lock the page, which is what you'd see if you left, recalculated, and came back in, it would show you image 1, which is from render mode, saved viewpoint number 1, which again, alphabetically is this one right here. So it's kind of confusing. All of this is confusing to begin with, but then when you come back into reports and unlock the pages and the image changes to an old rendering or a rendering that's not the way it's supposed to be set, like if I unlock the page now, this is even more confusing. So the proper way to do this is to create proxy images from the get-go. And before we go there, it's also important here in render mode, when you're saving images or image viewpoints, that you number them in the order that you want them to appear, or it's very helpful if you do that. So let me jump over to a different version of the model where I've already, in render mode, numbered these differently. So while I was saving the viewpoints, I started and I numbered them 01, 02, 03, 04, etc. And so if I add a new one, I would add 07, and it would retain the order of these. Why does this become important? I'll show you in a minute. But I also want to point out the reason I use the 01, 02, 03, and I'll jump over to another model for this, which doesn't have any saved viewpoints, is that sorting of these occurs based on the first number. So let's just call this 1 and add it, and then I'll orbit around a little and save number 2. And now I'm going to orbit even more, and this time I'm going to save it as number 10. So you can number them 1 through 9 without a 0, but if you're going to have 10 of these, I would suggest, in fact, implore that the 0 is put in front, because as soon as I add this, Now let's look at how these are sorted. Notice it goes 1, 10, 2. But if I have 0, 1 and 0, 2, then it would go 0, 1, 0, 2, 10. So that's kind of important too. I'm going to jump back here for a minute because this is our original model with these sorted viewpoints that haven't been numbered. And again, we made reference to this first image, which is this ISO southeast pseudo-illuminance. Well, let's say let's start with plan here. I want to add an image for the drive-through, which is back here. I'll sort of come in and orbit around to where we're just looking at the drive-through. And I'll call this drive-through. And I'll add it. Well, that alphabetically is first. So again, we're referencing the first image in this list, which is drive-through, but we wanted it to show ISO southeast in reports. So now when I come to reports, it has to recapture all the images, the static images that is. And I don't know if we're looking at this unlocked or locked, so let's unlock it and see. Oh, there's our original image, there's locked. So now it's showing drive-through, and maybe that's what I want. But again, what I originally had set here was I wanted to show the ISO southeast. So I'm going to unlock the page, go to properties, and here's where it's saying insert image render view 1. And this is totally undiscoverable, but you can actually change the value in here. And because that's now image number 2, I'm going to change this to a 2. And now it'll reference, when I lock the page, back to that ISO southeast illuminance, which is my second view. So here's where numbering the things becomes important. Let me go back to that where I've numbered them differently. Again, we're here where I've numbered 1 through 01 through 06. And let's kind of go through the same thing, how you would do this correctly right out of the gate. So I'll go to reports, landscape, captures the static images, image port. Now here's where we don't want to choose one of the saved renderings. We want a proxy so that when it's locked and unlocked, we can see that it's actually a proxy and that we need to lock the pages, and locking it will show us what we're really going to print out and see in the printout. So we'll go to proxy, and you kind of have to just figure this out. If it's the wrong size, and I'll just choose the wrong size. I'll just choose this one, which is way too small, and I'll click OK. I'll click OK again, and this proxy image is far too small, so that when I right-click, and if we're back in here and we do a dynamic image to, let's see, which image do we want here? I numbered them this time, so if I want ISO RGB, it's number 2. So let's say I want number 2 here. So I'll change this to number 2, click OK, lock the page, and you can see it's kind of small. So what we do is we unlock it, properties. Now let's choose a better proxy size. I think, well, for this model, this size might work better. I'll click OK. Now I want to pause here. As soon as I changed that, AGI incremented the dynamic image to 3. So always look at this. Always look at the image numbers. And I want it to be number 2. So I'll click OK, change it to 2, click OK. Okay, it kept that the same size, so maybe I can resize this, maybe I can't. Told you at the beginning I'd make mistakes. Let's try this again. Okay, I need to unlock the size. That maybe that's the problem. Okay, now I can resize it. So I'll make it bigger. Kind of move this around to where I want it. Make it a little bigger again. Okay, that seems to be the maximum I can go with this one. Anyway, now when I lock it, I'll see the image. Apparently that incremented again because I changed the order. I need to go back to 2. Lock it. And this one does not have the change. We did not add that extra object. So let me add that so we can see if the image updated. And recalculate. And we can now see the object is occluding. If we go to render mode, we can see the object. And if we go to reports now, because this is automated content, it recaptures the static images. It's always going to do that when things have changed. But because this is a dynamic image in reports, when it gets there, we now see the object. And so this updated the way it should. Now this is a case where this is still probably too small. I could unlock it, go to properties. Again, we have to remember that this is a reference to number 2, and go to a larger proxy size. I didn't look at what all might be available here. That's probably too big, but let's just go to this size here and drop this back to 2. So maybe this is better, and when I lock it, I get the content. So now you can make a copy of this page. If I want to show the other viewpoints, I can make a copy, insert copy of current page. And so now I have page 2. Now look at what happened here. There's page 1, there's page 2. Again, this was designed around automated content. So if I unlock this, and remember the other was image number 2, when we copied the page, AGI auto incremented it to image number 3. So if we'd started on 1 and we'd ordered our saved viewpoints in the order we wanted them to appear in reports, then we could add the first one, copy the page over and over and over, and it would increment each one just like you're seeing here. So that you don't have to go reassociate the different viewpoints and change things. So that's auto updating content. There's also automated content. So let's say I just want to set up one page and have it automatically, and that page is set up to show the first saved render viewpoint. And I just want AGI to create new pages exactly like this one for every one of my saved render viewpoints, no matter how many I have. Well, and I meant to do one other thing before I go there. So here, let's go back to render mode. And remember before when we added a drive-through view. So let's go to this view, sort of zoom in and orbit around to where we've got just the drive-through. Now here, I don't want to just name this drive-through. I want to name it image number 7. So we call it 07 drive-through. So it goes to the end of the list where it should be, and if I wanted to reference that in reports, it's got to recapture all the images. But let's say I wanted page 2 to be the drive-through. I unlock the page. Oops. Undo that. Properties. And change this to image number 7. And now we have the drive-through. So let's get over to automated content now. And I've got yet another model. It's the same one I just showed you with the saved render viewpoints, numbered the way we want them. I have not added a drive-through. We'll go to Reports, create custom content. Now I'm going to go a couple extra steps further with this, so this might teach some other interesting things. I've got some saved blocks which are specifically for title blocks and reports content. Now there's something in reports called a master page, and a master page is a page that's not counted, it's not printed. By default anyway, it's not printed, but it contains information that you want to put on subsequent pages, like a title block. So let me make this the master page first. You can see it changes it to master when I click on that. And I'll go to Drawing Schedules, and I'll add a block. Right click. So now if I make a copy of the master page, it'll become page 1, but I'll end up with this title block. And let me just show you a little more how this works. So back to Reports, insert copy of current page. So here's page 1. Now if I go back on the master page, and I'll delete this after I'm done, but I add some drawing lines or something like that, it will automatically update the other pages that are copies of the master. So I'll end up with that same content. So the master page should typically not include anything but drawing entities. But let me go back to the master and delete this. And go back to page 1. So this is somewhat similar if we want to add automated content that auto-updates. It's similar to what you've already seen. But you have to say, okay, well, I want the report to have some maybe schedules or something. Let's say I want schedules on the first page, and I don't want my image ports and things to start there. Maybe I want them to start on page 2. So let's say I want to add, I want to add a schedule here. And I'll just delete the description. 125. Okay. Oops. So we add a schedule here. Now I want the automated content to start on page 2. And again, this is actually, it's labeled page 1, but it's the second page in the reports here because the master technically counts as page 1, even though it doesn't print. So I can either make a copy of this page so that I get my master page content, or I can go back to the master page and make a copy of it, which is what I'm going to do. Make a copy of the master page. So now my schedule is on page 2, not page 1, and I want page 1 to start over here. I move the current page to the right. So now I'm back with page 1 having my schedule, page 2 being where I want the automated content, the rendered content to start. So I'm still going to have to add an image port. And here's where I want to start with image port number 1. But I start with a proxy. And let's just choose, I don't know. Let's see how we do with this one. And image number 1. Okay. Kind of move this around. It's too tall. Go to properties. I need something shorter. What was I selecting here? 864 by 600 something. Okay, let's choose this one. It auto-incremented, which I don't want it to do. I want that back at image number 1. And now I can kind of move this around, and we can lock it to see how it looks. Okay. So I've got one page with auto-updating content, and now I want this to create additional pages on its own for however many saved render viewpoints I have. And this is the tricky part for automated content. I go to Report Properties. Now I'm currently on the page labeled page 2, but it's the third page in this report. So it's page number 3, but it's named or labeled page 2. And if I click on page 2, I have some options here. And any of these that have a plus next to them are not just auto updating, but they're automated content. So I want to look for the render view plus because I want to create automated render view content. Click OK. And now you'll see that page 2 says render plus. And if I go back to model or render and come back to reports, AGI is now going to take all 6 of those saved render viewpoints and create additional pages for them. And here they are. So it started with, we still have our schedule on page 1. It started with our first rendered viewpoint. Then this is the second one in the list, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And it's important to get the sizing of this correct on your first one because I'm not sure if you change it now if that's going to go all the way down the line. I'm not positive about that. So it's important to kind of get things sized correctly before you generate the automated content here. But now if I go back to render mode, and let's go back and add a drive-through. Let's say that's what I want right there. 07. And this is RGB luminance. Add it. When I go back to reports, because I have automated content, not just auto updating content, I will now have 7 pages with renderings on them. And the drive-through will be number 7 right here. So that's how to do auto updating viewpoints in reports that reference render mode viewpoints, as well as automated content. Again, if you're going to be doing automated content or you need images or want images that update, it's important to always remember about locking and unlocking the pages. And when you're unlocking, that the best way to go, instead of one of the saved renderings, is to use a proxy. Now you can always come back here and look at the order of your saved rendered images and what those are, so that when you cancel out of here, you can put the correct number in here if you're just doing auto updating content, not automated. But if you're doing automated, you want to start with the first image, change the page to render view plus, and then you'll get the automated content as well. I hope this has been helpful. Take care.